Welcome to the Mental Health Motion News, where I am your host, Chabal, here with his co-host, Mr. Munster. Thank you, Mr. Munster. Today in the news, we have a doozy. But before we get into that, I must mention a disclaimer. Yes, a news station that comes with a warning. Why? Because we care that the information we give you might be fire. But it turns out that it is me, Ronan, Mr. Munster, gathering it, writing it, producing it, and delivering it. So it could be a hit piece and blow up in your face, just like this gentleman. So moving on from the fire to, yes, we are right now sitting in the great media war of 2021 as we see multiple platforms trying to get out information, but who really knows what information is real? So I need you to keep the best head on your shoulders. Moving on from the great media war of 2021 to, yes, as we are starting to understand who Chabot is, he tries not to give up and give you the truth the best way possible and the way he understands it in his head. And if you are in his head, oh, you're in a bad place. Moving on from who Chabot is to the opening quote in the MHM News to winners are not people who never fail, but people who never quit. Moving on from the opening quote to the opening story. I thought we had one, but never mind that. Moving on to the sick world news with your MHM News. To, yes, Putin has blasted Biden, saying that he has not been in contact with Bootstraps himself, and is saying that Russia is not weaponizing their energy supplies. It is the world rejecting the energy that they are trying to give. He says they have not tried to hurt anybody with energy, even during the Cold War. Moving on from the news to, yes, cargo crisis. Shipping giant Maersk diverts ships from backlog UK ports. Yes, I'm unsure exactly why those UK ports are exactly shut down, but I'm pretty sure in the US of A, they are shut down not because of a driver shortage, but because there is just a lack of work. People are not doing anything, and there is a freeze at the ports. Yes, I believe a freeze at the ports. Moving on from the news to, yes, China tests secret experimental drone ships at converted tourist resort. Yes, China is going around seeing how close they can probably get these ships with them being unmanned and if people can even recognize. So with that being done, these people are really testing their brinks. Moving on from the news to, yes, Australia's state announces mandatory vacations for workers or a $5,000 fine if you get no jabberooty. Yes, you see here they are raining down pain on the Australian people, and hopefully that these people will stand up and fight for themselves and start winning freedom. Moving on from the news to, yes, Chinese property tycoon Evergrande is apparently having a crisis of skyrocketing debt, and they have 300 billion in liabilities and have failed to pay. So we are going to see a crisis going down in China. Moving on from the news to, yes, welcome to America, bitches section in your MHM News. To, Ratcliffe says 1,000 intel documents given to Durham support more charges. Yes, you see that 1,000 documents could most likely maybe lead to more indictments and exposure of who could be involved in this deep web of Kabbalah. Moving on from the news to, yes, how can I not help you in the tech support with your MHM News? to yes, Milky Way mystery radio waves baffle scientists. Yes, you're seeing here that Chabot is not baffled at all, that the aliens from other planets are trying to get in contact with us. I should be getting your salary. I don't know why you're answering questions when they should be coming to Chabot. Moving on from the news to yes, Facebook facing a $36 million or pound fine over base personal data processing. Yes, you see here that Facebook is having not only data processing issues in the United States but all over the world, and these countries are stepping up and giving them fines, hopefully reversing their agenda and their algorithm for freedom. Moving on from the news to yes, crimes against humanity section with your MHM news. Mississippi Attorney General files reply brief with the Supreme Court urging High Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. Yes, Attorney General Lynn Fitch today has issued a reply for the courts about overturning Roe versus Wade. Moving on from the news to yes, federal judge calls for Justice Department civil rights probe on January 6th detainees treatment in a D.C. jail. Yes, the detainees in a D.C. jail are not being met with the proper medical care that should be given to them, and a probe is going to go inside the jail to see exactly what is going on. Corruption. Moving on from the news to yes, you've reached the border section of the MHM news. Mr. Munson said he wants to see an ombre Olympics where if these people can use a pole to vault themselves over the fence. Moving on from the news to yes, at least 160,000 immigrants released into the U.S. since March, and these are the ones that are most likely documented. So, who are the ones undocumented? We see here probably over 200,000 immigrants have come in the country since March. So, that being said, what was the whole point of these people coming in the country for? To take your job. Moving on from the news to yes, Homeland Security orders ICE to halt immigration work raids. Yes, you see here that all them people coming over the border were coming here to take your job. Moving on from the news to yes, voter fraud is a felony and could wind you up into Gitmo. Moving on from the news to yes, Georgia judge blocks inspection of 2020 absentee ballots in Fulton County. Yes, what we're seeing is the Georgia is still having problems on having their election to be as transparent as possible. So the Patriots, we need you to keep fighting. Fight on. Two fingers. Moving on from the news to yes, the 2020 election wasn't stolen. It was bought by Mark Zuckerberg. Yes, we are seeing here is these people are finally realizing what we realized 8 months ago, that Mark Zuckerberg bought the 2020 election and was able to have his propaganda put in these certain polling places. Moving on from the news to yes, 25 of the 26 counties that Mark Zuckerberg supported with from the CTC were won by bootstraps in 2020. The only one was Cherokee, which was won by DJT, but everybody else, oof, I'll tell you, bootstraps took them by a large number. Moving on from the fraud, scams, and lies could target you, so I need you to protect yourself, people. You need to keep your head on a swivel. You need to be like, ooh, those fraud, scams, and lies going on over there. I gotta be out, and alert your patriots about fraud, scams, and lies targeting them. Moving on to yes, Winter heating bills set to jump as inflation hits home. Yes, expect your heating bills to go up by 54% as the winter comes around. So, as we see these energy crises hit, it's because they are holding up the energy. Moving on from the news to, that's fraud. That's definitely a fraud, scam, and a lie right there. I ever seen one. Yes, we saw here that Bootstraps spoke on the supply chain crisis. Now, we might not want those container ships here in the country, because if you were with Chabol's talk show earlier, you saw why we don't want them container ships in our country. But we also know that Bootstraps is speaking on the crisis went like this. Crisis. Yes, and he walked away just like that. I think that we can actually put that whole thing I just did in quotes. Moving on from the news to, yes, Joe Biden proud of his son Hunter after selling $375,000 worth in paintings. Yes, what we're seeing here is that $375,000 worth of information was being sold, and it was propagandally put through in paintings. Moving on, I wonder how much they're going to insure him for. Millions, and then they're going to burn them. Moving on to the, yes, iron out racial propaganda with your MHM news. To, yes, to America's. Polls show 44% of voters support FBI targeting anti-critical race theory parents, as 47% oppose. Well, I guess those 47% oppose to 44%, so we win. Get rid of that critical race theory thinking out the door. Moving on from the news to the news section in your MHM news, the funny money section of the MHM news. Can't you see Mr. Munster giggling? Whoo, that's pretty funny. Moving on to, yes, Bitcoin could trigger financial meltdown, warns Bank of England deputy. Yes, we know here that the Bank of England is probably some of the ones that are behind the money manipulation, and if he says those banks are going to melt down, come on, Bitcoin, grab a match and then hand it to the altcoins, because we need you to fall. Moving on from the news to, yes, you've made it to the veteran section in your MHM news. Boop. Yes, MelQ has better posts than this, but I was tired and it is 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I grabbed it because I'm moving on with the news. To, yes, MelQ put out being afraid. They want blackmail folks to turn on Hillary and her puppet master Wallenberg and change their mind and surrender. They always thought if charges were brought, they would ultimately be safe, holding D5 SC ship container missile plan over everyone for control. Shift is out. Holter in WikiLeaks email. Also, Intone Schooler murder. HRC appointment ship. End of all ends final. Did Anthony Kennedy have a choice? Anthony Kennedy knew that Hillary sold out America's secrets to uranium to China, Russia, and then suddenly retired. Was he RR forced? Was this the original plan according to HRC election win? Yes. Ships, corruption. What evidence was he shown? Ukraine server evidence, Scalali evidence, RGB replacement. This links the royal family through the Royal Botanical Gardens. What is at stake? D5 Solar SE. Pain comes in many different forms. Full control. Enjoy the show. Being afraid. Witch hunt. Yes, you see here, if you know what the D5s are, they are in Chabol's talk show from earlier, and you can just grab it from the chat. Moving on from the news to Oh gosh, if you made it this far, God bless you. That is all for now from the Mental Health Militia News. Mr. Munster and Chabot, have a good one. God bless you and yours. Holla Chabot, two fingers. Yeah, I'd like to thank you so much. It's getting better. Hopefully, we can keep consistent. We love doing this, providing you with the news, and trying to show people the hidden war that is going on in front of their eyes. Right. Da 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 da.